Hello everyone. Today we're gonna have a look at how to make your character climb ladders, jump away from them, and reach the top with them in dreams. To demonstrate, this is what we're gonna achieve. We're gonna be able to stick to the ladder, move up and down, and have our animation reverse depending on our direction of travel. And when we reach the bottom, we release from the ladder, and when we reach the top, we hop on top of the platform. So, to achieve this, the basic mechanic behind this is a laser scope that is going to tell us what surface to stick to and what to look at, and a mover that's going to move us up and down. We're going to go through this logic step by step so that you can also get a chip like this for yourself. Now I have this microchip sort of set up already with some animations, the idle animation and the climbing animation. We're going to put those in the corner over there. Those will come later. First, what we want to do to start is reset time, because this is a very precise thing. We're going to be working with laser scopes, and we want those laser scopes to be perfectly pinpoint accurate. So, get a laser scope, put it on the chip over here, set it to about 0.6, and grab the little ball over here. Align it to the grid with triangle, that's very important. Then make sure that it's looking forward. It doesn't have to be exactly in the middle of your character, as long as it's looking straight ahead with no vertical angle at all. We want to place this behind your head. Actually 0.7 is going to be better for this. And we're going to turn off friend so that it does not collide with our own puppet. And also, just to prepare ourselves for further up ahead, we're going to turn on detection mode to both. And later we can even set it to hidden. This is going to make sure that we can scale the ladder whether it is invisible or not, because what we are actually scaling is the block behind it over here. What we want is a follower and a lookout rotator. So I'm going to grab those real quick over here. We're going to start with a follower because this one comes the most precisely. This little circle of the follower has to intersect exactly with the line of the laser scope. Now, it might not do that right away. You have to align it to grid first with triangle, and that should allow you to match the two up. Make sure that it is as close to the arrow as possible, but not past it. Make sure to set it to 100% strength and 100% dampening. And then what we want to do is go to the third page of the laser scope and the third page of the follower. We're going to hook up hit position to the target position. This is going to allow us to stick to this invisible surface that is behind the ladder. So we're going to close the follower right now, open the lookout rotator. For this one, we just want to make sure that this arrow is pointing backwards, away from the ladder. Set both of these to 100%, and also hook up hit surface orientation into our screen space direction. This is going to make sure that we are always looking at the ladder when we are on it. Now, I'm going to make the ladder from scratch here, so you know how to do that as well. I'm going to make a somewhat thin surface and have it stand straight up. I'm going to paste that over there. And on this surface, we're going to add a trigger zone. This trigger zone is going to look for a tag called ladder, and it's going to be shaped exactly like the shape of the ladder, or at least the width of it. We're going to make it as high as the ladder. We're going to make it reach as far down as the ladder. We don't have to do anything else with this trigger zone. It will do its job. Because what we are going to do on the puppet is we're going to add a tag. And we're going to call that ladder. And what this is going to do is this is going to make sure that when we are in the trigger zone, these this follower and this lookout rotator will activate. Because when we do not hook these two these two's power up to anything, let's have a look what happens. The puppet actually just returns to the point of 0, 0 on the map. It's just gonna go to the center of it, which is not what we want. So let's grab an AND gate real quick, and this AND gate is going to be all the parameters that are required to make us stick to the ladder. So we have this tag. We're gonna wire tag output in there. We're gonna wire the laser scopes hitting something into this AND gate, and we're going to finish it off, go and add a puppet interface, and make sure that the puppet is not on the ground. Why we want this is it's going to make it much easier for you to release from the ladder when you reach the bottom, because the character hits the because the character will hit the ground, and that will sever the connection with the ladder. Be very careful, because this ladder tag is going to be by default on the ground. You want it to be at about your face, your chin, something like that, but make sure it's not on the ground, or else the trigger zone is not going to be able to detect it. So as you'll see right now, we are able to stick to the ladder. We are still able to move left and right though, which is not what we want. So to fix that, we're going to add a keyframe. This keyframe is going to change some settings on the puppet. First of all, make sure turn speed is 0, just to be sure, and set air control down to 0% as well. Hook this up, name it something like character parameters. This is going to make sure that whenever we touch the ladder, we do not have any more air control, which is exactly what we want. Now, these are set up just fine, but we want to be able to do more with a ladder than just stick to it, obviously. So I'm going to grab the controller sensor that is already on the puppet here. I'm going to open that. And I'm going to put a node in between just to make sure that our inputs are clean. Put left stick local in there. I'm choosing to go for local because this will make sure that whenever we push the left stick up, it will always get us up the ladder. Because of some weird camera angles, that may not always be the case when you go for the regular left stick output. Grab a splitter. The Y of the splitter is what we want to be able to use. So next we're going to add a mover. This mover is going to be able to move us up and down the ladder like we want. Set it to 100% strength and 100% dampening. And turn down the speed just a little bit, because ladder climbing isn't that fast usually. And point the arrow downwards. You want to be able to do that with the grid to make sure that it's pointing straight down. This Y is going to control the forward and backward speed of that mover. And this thing over here, these parameters for sticking to the ladder, are also going to turn on the mover. So let's have a look at what that looks like. As you can see, by moving the stick up and down, we can scale the ladder up and down. We cannot move left and right anymore. You can see I'm trying because the default camera is still trying to move with me, but I cannot move left and right anymore. I can only move up and down, and when we reach the bottom, we actually detach from our ladder. So next up, we want to be able to jump away from the ladder, perhaps. We don't want to stick to it and only be able to disattach from it at the bottom or the top. We want to be able to jump away from it. To do that, we're going to clone this node over here. We're going to grab the cross button. And we're going to grab another follower. Mover. Now, this one is a bit less precise as long as it's aimed upwards and away from the ladder, but make sure it's fairly straight so you don't come out at an angle. All the other parameters are set fine. 100% movement strength and 100% dampening is what you want. And set the speed to, well, about 5 or 6, I think is appropriate. Now, we're going to put an AND gate in front of it. One of the parameters is being on the ladder itself, so that's going to be one of the inputs. And the other is going to be pressing X. However, we do not want the player to continuously be able to control that mover. We want to very briefly activate that mover. So I'm going to put a signal manipulator in the middle, set it to pulse on input on, plug that into that, that into that. And this is going to make sure that this mover only for a very brief period of time moves us away from the ladder. Now, we're running into a problem. We are still kind of close enough to the ladder to stick to it again after the mover has been turned on. Really, we need something to, just for a split second, interrupt the connection with the ladder when we try to jump away from it. We're going to do that with a timer. This timer over here is what we're going to use. And you want to plug this output over here, this signal manipulator, into the reset timer. And the timer itself will count up to, let's say, 0.2. Make sure also to fill it up, fill up the current time so that it's actually active. Next, we're going to plug the timer finished signal into this AND gate. So this thing being full is going to be one of the new parameters for sticking to the ladder. And pressing X when you're on the ladder will reset this one. So very briefly, you will not stick to the ladder anymore. That's going to allow us to jump away from it like we want to. Perfect. So you may also want to face away from the ladder when you land, as in you want to rotate away from it, because as you can see right now, our puppet's direction remains the same, whereas you may want it to face the opposite direction. At least, that's what I wanted. So, we'll just run you through that real quick. All you need is the timer finished on signal of this timer to be hooked into this NOT input. And this NOT input is going to turn on a rotator. A regular rotator, in fact. Make sure that the grid is on so that you can place this one angled upwards. Strength to 100%, dampening to 100%. And because this timer is on for 0.2 seconds and we want to rotate 180 degrees, we're going to turn this one up to 900 degrees a second so that in the short time that this timer is on, it will rotate fully. It actually rotates us a little bit further, so we may need to do some tweaking with the rotator here. We're going to set it to 600 because it seems to be doing 3/4 instead of 2. Yeah, there we go. Now it's facing almost perfectly away from the ladder. Again, this may need some tweaking, but tweak it to the right speed and it will look towards the correct angle. Now we can jump away from the ladder, we can go up and down, but what happens when we reach the top? Now you may have noticed over here this tag called ladder top. You want this tag to be at the top of your ladder. In fact, this little point over here that it's going to signify has to almost intersect with it. Now we're going to do something very similar actually to the jumping over here. Because what we are going to do is we're going to, again, when we reach the top, sever the connection with the ladder just for a split second and move. Except we're going to move up this time instead of moving away from the ladder. So make sure this one is pointed straight up and about, well, let's say 3.5 to 4. And again, a signal manipulator, an AND gate, or actually not an AND gate. Let's have a look. we want a trigger zone. And this trigger zone is going to look for the ladder top tag. So let's fill that in real quick. Ladder top. It's a tag. Make sure that this trigger zone is at about the head of the character, or somewhere at the body. Let's experiment with that a little bit. It doesn't come very precisely, but in a minute we'll be able to see if it's working or not and if it's at the right place. Hook up the detected over here into this signal manipulator that we copied from over here, so it's set to pulse, and it's going to turn on this mover. What that's going to do is it's going to move us up and over the ladder for just a second. Now, the way we currently have our things set up, for some reason, by the way, it's bouncing away from the ladder sometimes. I'm going to look into that in a second, don't worry. This top of the ladder is placed at the right place for this trigger zone. If for some reason you are still sticking to the ladder, you can always do this timer trick again. Make this timer resets when you hit the tag, and hook up the timer finish signal into this AND gate. So that is one of the other parameters that it has to fulfill in order for you to stick to the ladder. Now that we've done all that, mechanically our ladder is basically complete. What I'm going to show you next has to do with animations and how you can hook up animations to your ladder. We're going to copy this splitter over here, and this Y output of the current splitter is what we're going to put in here. This is what is going to be used to determine the direction of the timeline. I'm going to show you the keyframes that I have set up for that real quick. Basically, this one is just one hand reaching up and one knee going up, the other hand going down, and the other leg going down, and it flips that for the other one. That's all there is to it. This final one loops as well. Now, it takes about, well, I would say 0.3 seconds to complete this animation. That's going to be important to know, because we're going to use two timers over here. This timer we're going to set to 0.3 seconds, and every time it completes we want it to reset itself, and we're going to want this timer output to go into the playhead over here. We're going to do the same over here, except we're making this timer count down. So wire the plus into starting this timer and the negative into starting this timer over here. Make sure that both of these are hooked up. And we want this one to activate when the analog stick is moving at all, basically. So we're going to put down two calculators over here. Or actually, we can do it. Yeah, let's do it with two. Plug both of these into their A ports. And set them to greater than. This is going to make sure that this timeline only activates when you're actually pushing any direction on the stick, up or down. And then we're going to put an AND gate in front of it, put both of these in the same input, and put being stuck to the ladder as the other parameter. And that's going to go into the power. For our idle pose, we're going to go for a similar setup, except these are going to be knots. Actually, I'm going to hook these up, these calculators up over here to make sure that they're not intersecting, so that I don't get any half signals from the analog stick. We're going to put that into one of them and being stuck to the ladder as the other one. And this pose is, as you can see, just the character holding itself up. It's not the most brilliant animation, as you're going to see in a second, but it will have to do for now. Let's try that out. And as you can see, the animation is very ugly, so excuse me for that, but the direction of the animation is being determined by the timers that we set up earlier, by plugging them into the playhead position. And when it's idle, when your character is idle and not moving, it will go into its idle position. Now, it's not entirely stuck to the ladder, as you can see. If we want it to be stuck to the ladder, we're going to have to tweak either the visual of the ladder itself, which we can do. So that way we would say that the ladder is going a bit forward. We're going to make this block invisible anyway, so let's do that right now, but keep it collidable. And this visual of the ladder is only visible but not collidable, which is very important. Now that we have this, it will look much more like our character is actually climbing the ladder. And when we reach the top, obviously the visual doesn't match up because this ladder was actually a bit longer. But when we reach the top, it will get us up a platform if there was one. And there we go. That is basically the basic gist of climbing ladders in Dreams with your character. I'm using the platformer puppet right now, but it will work on the default deluxe puppet as well, so don't worry about that. That is everything I have to say about ladder climbing in Dreams. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck.